my channel. Today I am going to be reviewing and demoing the new Natasha Denona Love Palette and the Love Glow Cheek Palette. So these just launched on the Beautylish website. You can pick it up at Sephora. There's lots of information about these. Because I did create 3 different eyeshadow looks with this palette, and I also demoed this twice, this might be a really long video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip all of the details about both of these palettes. I don't want to waste time going into a lot of the details about these palettes just because we got a lot of looks to create, and I don't want this video to be 35 minutes long because this took me a long time to film, so I do know I have a lot of footage. So if you guys are okay with that, let's go ahead and jump into the 3 tutorials that I did using this new palette, which is absolutely beautiful. And then we're going to jump into the tutorial of me using this cheek palette, and then we'll get into the swatches, and then we'll get into my full final thoughts at the end. I will leave timestamps in the description box just to make it easy for you guys to navigate through. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into the first tutorial. Okay, so let's get playing with this new palette from Natasha Denona. So this is called the new Love Palette. The packaging is actually really, really pretty. This is what the box looks like. It's kind of just like a really pretty, you know, pink shiny box. And this is the color story that we got going on here. If you guys are familiar with my channel, the creamy mattes from Natasha Denona are very hit and miss with me. There's some that I love, and then there's some of those shades that just don't blend for me, and that's just me on an individual basis. I did notice there's probably 2 shades in here. This one right here, this Commitment. This Dream right here is another one. The others are more of a traditional matte. They're creamier, but they're not as creamy as these 2. There are 2 duochrome shades in this palette. So it's Giving and Pure Love. Both of these are the duochromes, and then the rest are like metallic shades. Now, I am using the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow primer just for reference. First thing I'm going to do is grab the shade first. I'm just going to take a big fluffy brush, and I'm going to bring it all the way up into the crease, up on the brow bone, kind of into the inner corner, just to kind of highlight that area. So let's start with the shade Soul. Oh, it's pigmented. So be careful with that shade. If you don't want a lot of pigment with it, go in very, very lightly with it because it's pretty pigmented. Let's go into Heartbeat, which is this shade right up here. So I'm going to go into Soul, and I'm going to bring that on the lower lash line. I'm going to go into Heartbeat, putting this right here on this outer corner and kind of creating some of that depth with that. Also bring that along the lower lash line, keeping it here on the outer corner. Now I have this little bump right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's this little bump, and it's because of the Bite Beauty foundation. It's been breaking me out like crazy. I have one up here. I have a couple of pieces right here. So this little bump right here, you're just gonna have to ignore it. I know it's gonna kind of make it look like my eyeshadow is not fully blended right there, but I have to work around it because it is definitely obnoxiously in the way. Okay, I'm gonna grab this tiny little brush from Refer. This is the number 3, and I'm gonna go into the shade Commitment, which is that creamy matte formula right here on the outer corner, and kind of create a little bit of a line. to go into the shade Passion. I think Passion would be fun, kind of put it on the lid. I'm going to first go in with it dry, just so we can see what this will look like. I'm going to use my flat definer brush. Now I'm going to put my brush into this one and this one. So I'm kind of grabbing both shades. I am actually going to put that shade on a brush and I'm going to spray it. I'm going to tip my head back and kind of bring it up into the crease a little bit and kind of spray it over top of what we've done here. Kind of bringing it a little bit along the lower lash line as well. Now for the inner corner, I would love to put that Blind. Let's try Blind, which is like a really pretty silver color. So let's see what the silver would look like. Oh yeah, that's super pretty. Oh my gosh. So this is the final look for look number 1. The only thing that's bugging me is that little dot right here, like grabbed pigment, and it looks ridiculous, but I can't help it. It's a little blemish, and I mean, I have another one right up here. So it's all the Bite Beauty foundation's fault, which that review is coming up. But this is the final look. I do really, really love that Passion shade on the lid. I think it's really pretty, and I also liked giving over top of it. I still stand by my statement with the shade Commitment, that creamy to matte formula. I just think it's best applied in one direct area versus, you know, putting it on with a blending brush and blending it out. Other than that, I think this is a beautiful look. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 2. Okay, so let's move on to look number 2. Because this eyeshadow look is kind of dark and mysterious, let's try to go in with something a little bit lighter, a little bit more on an everyday basis. So I'm going to first go into the shade Intense, and I'm going to pop this in the crease. So I'm going to go into the shade Valentine, and I'm going to just use Valentine to kind of make this a little bit more pinky. Okay, now I'm going to go into the shade Soul, and I'm keeping this right here on this outer corner. I'm going to go into Intense, and I'm going to bring that on the lower lash line. Let's go in with Transparent. I think Transparent looks like such a beautiful shade, and place that all over the lid. Oh, that's got a really pretty pinky, like peachy base to it. It's really pretty. Okay. So now what I like to do is I am going to dip my brush in there. I'm going to wet it down just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. Now I'm going to go back to the pencil brush and I'm going to go into Soul and Intense. Kind of like blend out this line. I think I'm just going to bring the shade Transparent into the inner corner and kind of bring it down. Just to kind of really brighten up this eye. Okay, so this is the final look for look number 2. Had I to do it over, I would not have done this thick of a line when it comes to the eyeliner. With this look, I probably would have done maybe a brown eyeliner up on the waterline and right at the base of the lashes, then put the lashes on. But because I'm going to be taking it off, I just decided to put on a liquid eyeliner because it's just a little bit easier than, you know, trying to get off like a really smudged out brown eyeliner. So, but I do kind of like the black with that pink. I think it actually makes the pink pop. So these are totally different looks, but both very beautiful. I love this one for like more of an everyday wear, and this one's just very kind of a little bit darker, definitely maybe a night on the town or whatever, but both are really pretty. So that's it for look number 2. Let's go ahead and jump into look number 3. Because this bump is so pronounced, I'm gonna go on this side for look number 3 because this thing is just ridiculous. I wasn't really paying much attention to it until I got my makeup on and I started blending eyeshadows over it. I was like, oh, that is gonna be a problem. The thing that I'm noticing in this palette that I wish that it had, I wish this palette had one neutral brown shade. Those of us that like to use shadows in one palette, that would be nice. However, these are removable. All you gotta do is just put a pin in here and it'll pop it out. So I will probably customize this. I might take out this red because I just don't think I'll ever use this red shade. And I might pop it out and put in like a neutral brown. So I'm actually gonna grab, this is the mini nude palette. I'm just gonna grab a neutral brown shade. It is not warm, it's not cool, it's just neutral brown, and I'm gonna use that in my crease. Because I'm not like a super fan of really pink eyeshadow looks, what I'm noticing is because there isn't anything with a brown tone in this palette, everything's just really pink or really purple, and the only way to tone down those pink shadows is to have a neutral brown shade. So I'm gonna go into that shade. I'm using my Rephr number 13. And I'm basically going to bring this in this crease and kind of use it as a transition. Okay, so I think now I'm going to go into the shade Soul. I'm going to drop that right into the crease. See how much better that shadow is? It's not so pink. Look how pretty that shadow is over that brown. It just really brought it together. This is what I was looking for in the first eye look. It just needs a brown to be able to mute some of those bright pink shadows, especially for those days where you want to wear this for like just a day look. Okay, I am gonna go into that brown really quick and I'm gonna place it really good here on this outer corner. Then I'm going to go into the shade Soul and I'm going to put it right over top. Those shades together are so perfect. I am going to go into Heartbeat and I'm going to use my little Rephr brush. I'm gonna grab the shade Blind. Oh my gosh, that shade is so pretty. Wow. One of the prettiest silvers. Holy smokes. Go back into this neutral brown from the mini nudes and I'm gonna place this like right here. Then I'm going to go into the shade Soul and kind of start like buffing that into the outer corner. Okay, now I'm going to go into Heartbeat and I'm going to grab a little bit of Trust, just a tiny, tiny bit of Trust. And I'm going to stamp that into this outer corner. I took this small little rougher brush and I went into the shade Commitment and I dialed it right at the base of the lashes and then kind of started to kind of smoke it into the look, just to give it a tiny bit of depth right there at the base of the lashes. For the lower lash line, I'm gonna grab this shade right here. When I first looked at this palette online, I did not think it was that pink, but this palette is pink. I mean, that's the Valentine's Day, so, you know, that's definitely the theme of the palette, and it is true to the theme because it's pink. Now I'm gonna grab the shade Soul. We're gonna go ahead and place that right over top of that shade. If you want that Soul to not be as bright, definitely put a brown neutral tone underneath it. Let's go into Heartbeat. I'm gonna put that really close to the lash line on the outer corner. I'm gonna take a flat tipped brush like this and I'm gonna go into the shade Trust. I am gonna smoke that into the base of the lashes. Okay, so this is the final look for look number 3, and I don't think they 100% match, but I'm tired, you guys. I'm so tired. It just is what it is. I'm not going to be perfectionist. It just is what it is. So that's it for the palette tutorial. Let's go ahead and start playing with this new Glow palette. I don't want to put anything else on my skin because I want you guys to actually see what these look like on the face. I don't want to disrupt it with contour and bronzer and all of that. I want you guys to actually see the pigments. I really loved the Bloom palette. The only thing that I'm worried about is this diamond powder. So this diamond powder looks really glittery and I'm worried about it. So I'm gonna grab this brush from Sonia G. This is non-dyed goat hair. So this is the Classic Cheek. The only thing that I don't like about that is that I have hyperpigmentation on my cheeks, and because it has an emollient base to it, it lifts my foundation from underneath, and then you can start seeing my hyperpigmentation come through. So as you can see right here in this area, it's got an emollient base. It kind of picks up the foundation, and so it's like I lost some of my coverage. So some of my hyperpigmentation is pulling through, but let's go ahead and put it on this side so that you guys can watch. So you can see that this side doesn't have as much pigmentation. Yeah, I almost prefer a little bit different of a formula. This one is just really shiny. It's really emollient based, and what happens is it makes my pores and stuff look really big. I almost wonder if it would look better if I apply it with a sponge versus a brush. I just don't know that I love the emollient base to it. This one isn't like that. This one, I don't remember being that emollient based. And maybe it's because it's a darker color and you went in really lightly with it. I don't know. I'm gonna go into the Sheer Glow. So I'm gonna grab just a tiny bit of this, you guys, like a tiny bit of this. It's super shimmery. You can see how it's lifting up my foundation, and I'm just like not getting like the best blush application. I don't know, like I don't remember having that issue with this one. I don't remember it lifting my foundation. And the other thing that I liked about this one is that both of the shades on top were a cream. This one isn't. The only shade that's cream is this one, and I just wish that she would have continued that with this palette. I kind of want to take this off and try it again and see if I can find a way to make this work. Especially if you're at home and you get this palette and you have the exact same thing happen to you. I want to know why it's lifting my foundation. And so I think I might wipe my face off, put some foundation on, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and took off my makeup and reapplied my foundation. I'm not sure if I want to try a dry sponge or a damp sponge because the brush just definitely lifted my foundation up. Like as I was taking and kind of like doing this, it just lifted. So I did dampen this sponge, you know, squeeze all the water out, but I actually gonna take a paper towel to it and make sure that I grab as much moisture out of it as I can. Let's try this again, I'm nervous. All right, so I picked some up right here. It does. It gives me a little bit of something. I'm going to leave it there because if I go any further, it's going to really lift it. So I'm going to rely on the rest of the products to maybe give me something. I think this is only going to work for a lighter skin tone. I just don't think that it's going to look that pretty on. I feel like if you have a medium or a darker skin tone, you're going to run into the same thing that I'm having. You need to go in with so much for it to have color. And then once you get color, you've lifted up your foundation. So just be mindful that this shade right here is not going to work for everybody. The difference between this palette and the Bloom palette is that this was kind of what this is. Kind of gave you a base to start with, and then you went in with this, and as you layered it, you could build the intensity. Therefore, any skin tone could wear this, whether you're light to dark, because it was so buildable. Then even though it was the most intimidating shade in the palette, it's actually the best shade in the palette, in my personal opinion, once you kind of learned how to use it. But with this palette, because there's only one cream formula, that is the blush, there's nothing else in here to really give you the blush if you're a medium skin tone. So keep that in mind when you're looking at buying this. I just want to stress that this is not going to work for everybody. And the other problem is you have all these other shades in here that are so glittery that I just kind of feel like that again dials it down to a smaller amount of people that are going to be able to use this palette. I'm going to take my rougher brush and I'm going to go into this this is the Super Glow, and I'm going to apply this like I would a blush. Going in with the cream product, this has something to grab onto. So I'm going to buff a little bit of the powder over top of those edges just to kind of buff it in and blur out a little bit of those lines. Now let's go into the highlighter. So I'm going to take my fan brush and I'm going to go into this shade. I don't feel like this is as intense as the shade in the Bronze and Glow palette. I feel like you have to build that shade. I'm going to use the Worker fan brush. I'm going to go into this shade right here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this and just kind of like sweep it. Okay, so that just puts a ton of glitter on the face, like a ton. Because that's not a shade that I would use on a daily, I want to pop some like right in the middle of my eyelids. I want to see what that will look like as kind of an eyeshadow. Did that make much of a difference? Yeah, it did. This just added a little bit of something to my eyelid look that I actually really like. This is a really pretty formula, but I just don't love it for the face. That's my whole point. That's it for the face application. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches, and then I will get into my final thoughts. Okay, you guys, I am back to give you guys my final thoughts. Now, you guys know that normally I like to go through my other palettes and swatch this palette and find similar shades in other palettes. Well, my hands are all stained. I have been swatching for about an hour now. It is almost 10 o'clock at night, and I have not found similar shades. I have found a few similarities, but not enough to say that this palette is dupable in my collection, which is really weird. These shades look so different in real life than all of the promo pictures that I have seen, and even the swatches that I've seen. I really thought I had a lot of palettes that had a lot of similar shades. I just don't have anything like this palette in my collection as far as the shades and the color story goes. I've went through every palette I own, and I just can't find like anything that's close to some of these shades. Now this shade Lifetime right here is probably my favorite because it's a peachy tone. You guys know I love me a peach. This is probably one of the prettiest peachy eyeshadows I have. I've been on the hunt for a peachy eyeshadow like this. To be completely honest with you, I kind of felt like it was just going to be a normal palette. But it's not. It's definitely not a palette that I have, which is really nice. I like this palette. I won't be using this palette a lot because this palette is for those of you out there who love pinks and purples. If you're not into pinks and purples, I don't know that I would even buy this. I think you have to love the pinks and purples to love this palette. I'm glad that this is a smaller palette, the $65 palette. You guys know that Metropolis palette was not my favorite, and the reason why I have tried this palette so many times, you guys. The reason I don't love this palette is filled with these creamy matte formulas right here. And this one only has 2. Thank God. I was so glad there was only 2 in here. This one is filled with it. It just drives me nuts. This is not my favorite palette. I know I'm alone in saying that. Many people love the Metropolis palette. I just don't. But I actually really like this one as far as the quality. The quality is there in this. The pigment is beautiful. They blend beautifully. So much better than Metropolis. I'm going to tell you right now, so much better than Metropolis. You guys know I keep it 100% real, whether people agree with me or not. This is my personal opinion. But this is a nice palette. If you are in the market for a beautiful pink, purpley type of palette, this is really pretty. Okay. I don't like this. There's several reasons why I don't like this, but this is not my favorite. I wish that she would have stuck with what she did in this, where she had the 2 cream formulas. This is so emollient. So it's basically a base, okay? Which that's what this other one was. But then you go over top of it with this, which is just a huge glitter shimmer mess. And you have to be very careful with putting that on your cheek. Now let me also tell you, if you have any texture, if you have enlarged pores, if you have any of that, you are not going to want to buy this. I can promise you that. You're not going to want to buy this. If you are wanting to buy this because of this cream, there are so many other beautiful, creamy, beautiful blushes out on the market that are so much better than this. Now don't get me wrong, my blush looks decent right now. It does. this is not something that I would wear on a daily basis though. I kind of feel like it's just too shimmery for a face. And as I've gotten older, I don't like that super shimmery blush. I like something that's got a little bit of shimmer to it, but it's not as dramatic. If she wasn't going to do another cream, she should have done this as a matte blush. Do you know how pretty that would have been to have this as like a base and then this as like a matte blush to kind of use to intensify, and then you can put some shimmer on it, exactly like the bronze palette. So this is the tan palette. So this is a cream formula. This is like this, okay? It's the exact same formula as this, okay? So these are called her Super Glows, okay? So that's a Super Glow. But down here is the matte bronzer. That's what this is missing. So this is a diamond powder. How amazing would that have been if this would have been a beautiful pinky, mauvey, peachy blush, and then you had these to kind of intensify that matte blush with. Let's just say that you like the idea of having all of these to work with. Well, you can use your matte blush, absolutely. But I honestly only think a very few amount of people are going to want to put this all over their face because it's straight up glitter. So it's, in my opinion, a waste. I think majority of the people would have probably gotten a lot more use out of this palette if it would have had a matte blush in it. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm older and I don't like all that texture. And don't get me wrong, I think this looks really pretty. I did go in with a little bit of this Milani blush just to give it a little bit of something because I felt like all I had was a bunch of glitter on my face and I needed something. So I feel like if you're gonna buy this, plan on using your own blush with it. I would not just use this palette on its own. So let's just say that you've already bought it and it's on the way and it has not arrived at your house yet. If that's the case, use this with one of your own matte blushes, and I think you'll enjoy this a lot more than trying to just use this by itself. I feel like this will complement and work way better with just a matte blush. So keep that in mind. But if you're on the fence about it, take everything that I said and, you know, really think about if this is a palette for you, because we're all different and we all like different things. I am just pointing out all of the variations in this palette, and you need to decide if the variations in this palette is what you need or want, you know, for your everyday use. And because these are expensive, you're not going to want to spend all that money on something that you're not going to use very often. So that's it for the review on both of these products. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that it was helpful, and thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I will see you guys in my next video, and I love you all so much. Bye.